Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, onion, fennel and cucumber, plum, pear and papaya, aubergine and saya, lime, lentils and quinoa, oatmeal bread and oatmeal flour, watercress and okra, tofu and sweet pepper.
So everyone, now I decided that I'm going to tell you the story of how I really had to leave Denmark. It was a little facetious in the end of the video where I left Denmark, where I basically blamed it on Homeland Security telling me to leave Denmark as soon as possible. It is true that I had no other choice than to leave Denmark, but it was not due to the pandemic, because the pandemic hadn't yet risen in Europe. The issue was basically very different. So my friend Nick Harris asked me if I could go and visit, and I did. After a while, I had very good reason to just leave everything because I was just so fed up with everything. And I went over there, and in the beginning things were seemingly very great, no issues, but after a while I started to note that Nick was starting to having very big problems with me. Unlike, for most people it would be really trivial things. Like the biggest thing was that I didn't put down the toilet seat after going to the toilet. After a while he told me that I could no longer stay. And that was in the midst of the night. I got some mutual friends, so I had somewhere to stay there and then. And I also have a friend in Balsrup, which is just outside of Copenhagen. A friend of mine, Susanna, she was with me to Japan the second time I went there. She brought me as a translator, so yeah, I know her quite well, and she lives in Denmark now. So that was a very easy escape, so I could just get there and then get the cheapest plane ticket as soon as possible. But that's my side of the story. I want to tell you next side of the story, which I already knew a lot of, which is the reason why, as soon as I got into the airplane, I just said, let's just start over from scratch. Things didn't pan out, but we don't need to continue this fashion. We were great friends before this happened, and we've been friends after that happened, but I decided there and then that I'm not going to visit him in that fashion anymore. If ever we're going to meet up, it must be at the gathering, or if I am to visit, then maybe I'll just stay somewhere else, so these type of things will not occur. But next side of the story is way more complicated, and I'm going to share this now. And I feel like I can do that because there's no more a repetition to be destroyed. Showing up at his flat, it was very obvious quite soon that he was actually an untreated autist with alcohol issues. I had to go and buy him vodka from the store and such whenever he told me to go out and shop. So Nick rarely went out to shop on his own. And if he did, it took hours. Clear signs of untreated autism. There was more neurological issues that was going on, so obviously Nick being a trans male and from the western part of Norway, but yeah, obviously moved to Denmark, having a family that is from a place of like fundamentally Christian values, it might have been difficult, and also being polyamorous, it might also have been even more difficult. But there wasn't only neurological issues. Well, obviously there was this issue of not having enough money for a transitioning operation, which was basically his life goal, so he lived very cheaply. But you also had those physical issues of having a very high heartbeat, that was one thing. Another thing was basically being abnormally small, like built. And he also had very huge issues with getting food. Another thing that we really started arguing about was food, because he said we were going to order food, and then it took hours, and I said I'm really starting to get hungry now, and he went saying things like, you know, it is not my job to feed you. So you kind of see like some kind of issues going on there, so that's both like physical and mental issues. But he also had abnormally high iron stores. he had to go into the hospital and drain blood once in a while. And something happened that didn't really cross my mind. It's basically, I was writing to him, he replied, on like, not a daily basis, but it was like everything between every other day to like every 8th day or something like that. He stopped replying. And I just found it a little strange, but it didn't cross my mind of anything else. Then I figured, about a month later, he had passed away. And the official story, told by his mum on his Facebook, was basically that he passed away due to pneumonia, meaning that you get inflammation in your lungs, which, hands down, very probable. It is very probably the reason. Don't get me wrong. He was very sick, and a pneumonia could easily kill him. No doubt about that. However, I feel as there is one other cause of death that is equally possible, and that's suicide. He was talking about suicide a lot. I consulted this with some other mutual friends, and we agree that that is mutually possible. A lot of parents lie, and especially when it comes to suicide, because that's something they don't want on their conscience. But another factor there is that they don't want people to know certain things, especially when a parent themselves has not done everything in their power to avoid such and such. Nick had a lot of lack of support from parents, and I'm quite sure that he didn't have the amount of support that he needed from doctors either. He needed a lot more help than he could get from anyone. I think that Nick should have been institutionalized, and I think that Nick needed more medical attention and more neurological attention than he ever did in his entire life. These are my thoughts on the situation. Like, Nick and I, we've been friendly ever since. We haven't been fighting after this incident. We have basically talked to each other and supported each other, sharing different things with each other. He was actually one of the few people who kept watching my Breath of the Wild challenge and such. And things just went in a direction that I hadn't expected. Quite honestly, I just can't grasp that he's dead. I'm literally waiting for him to show up and tell me that you need to stop telling people that I'm dead. I don't know where he's buried. I don't know who to talk to about this. Who knew him that well that is willing to talk to me, because I've tried to talk to 2 people and I'm not sure like who else I could reach out to, because there's so many things that I'm trying to say, but I just can't do it. Nick was definitely a fighter, without a doubt. Like, Nick has been a vegan for way longer than I have, despite being much younger than me. So that is a very huge factor. And just living with this type of issues in like constant pain and just have to drinking alcohol to function. It must have been a very difficult life for Nick, without a doubt. So, no longer alive, but I hope that you can finally rest in peace.